what you made me do. Look what I made for you.
His name is
Old Man Wade. I live by the funk. I die by the funk. Old Man Wade. Old Man.
I'm about to do something terrible.
Old Man Wade. Old Man. Old Man.
Nope, not doing this. We're not doing this.
Ha ha. Point. Old man. Old man. Old man. Old man. So, fun fact for you. Once upon a time, I wasn't built like a Samoan. I used to be built. I was built like a wrestler. Like I was in the gym every day, basketball, lift weights, the whole 9 yards. And at that time, I wanted to fight a bear with an axe. Because in my mind, there's no way me, a human being, could beat a bear. Now, I'm not talking like polar or just a like an average sized bear, which even an average sized bear could knock my head off with a swipe. There's this place in, I want to say it's close to Rhode Island, the Elks Lodge, and I think it's called the Elks Lodge, or it's the it's something. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet, and they have a stuffed bear in there.
Oh.
And even in my dumb ass, arrogant human mind, I said to myself, back in my day, I could have beat this bear because I am a dumb, foolish adult and thought that I could beat a bear, not with a gun, with an axe. That's
no. It's noble. I mean, I in my heyday thought I could probably beat one with a rear naked choke. You know, if I just got in the right position and squeeze hard enough, a bear's got to breathe, right? But the truth is, I don't even think I could take a dude in a bear costume. If we're being perfectly honest, it's just even if you just had the fake claws on one hand and just the bare head, I think you get 10 extra points in a fight against me. Bears are tough. I'm not getting revenanted.
Nah. And even in the Spider-Man game, when he fought a guy in a bear suit.
Dude, those are the most annoying bad guys in the. I hated those dudes in that game worse than anything else in that game. Man, maybe it is something about dudes in bear suits. Maybe I got some subconscious hate against bear suited men because of that game. Man,
first person to be traumatized with this. First person to be traumatized by Spider-Man video games. Welcome to the Old Man Wade Show. I am your host, the God of Stub and the Lord of Laughter, Old Man Wade, and back again. That sultry, goofy voice that you're hearing is the man, the myth, the legend, the soon-to-be Netflix special, or wherever he decides to put it, Slade Ham.
Yeah, man, it's good to be back. I like talking about stuff. This is a fun place to do that.
I love these.
That was the most generic. That's the most generic thing I've ever said about a thing. I like talking about stuff, and this is a good place to do that.
I figure you're just practicing for your eventual late night interview. Where it's just like, yeah, I just like talking about stuff.
It's really, if it's amazing that there are people making a living doing just that. I got to figure out my piece in that. All I want to do is talk to people about stuff that they're interested in and hope that some of it rubs off on me. And I just haven't figured out how to turn that into a complete paycheck yet. I'm getting close. We're getting there. It's good to be here talking about stuff.
Yeah, that's all. That's if I could make a living just running my damn mouth, I would do it. But I'm not sure if I love that more or if I love just like writing about it more. You know what I mean? Like the research into things and then putting it on paper and just actively like this. This is gonna sound cheesy to a lot of people, but I'm sure you'll understand like the sound of the keys as you're putting words on a screen. Or even something as simple as like once you're done, you don't like it, and then you hit the backspace a bunch of times because you know something else great is coming out of it. It's amazing.
There's a lot of power. There's a lot of power in writing because you get to decide what goes on the page and you get to decide what doesn't. And that's in a world like this where you got so little control in almost every single day. That to me, writers have a superpower, the ability to sit down and actually be in charge for a second.
It really is. And it's funny now that I'm running my the website I write for, I run their Instagram page, and I have the power to just be like, hey, I don't want to see your comment. Erase.
Yes. It's that rolling up of the limo glass. You know what? I don't have to listen to this. You just hit the button.
Exactly. Just, oh, you're a dickhead. What? And I don't even mind negative like comments or things or disagreements and stuff like that. But when you're just being a dick to be a dick, just because you're 1,000 miles away and no one will ever see you, it's like, come on, man, be an adult. Let's have a conversation. Let's not start with all these slurs and all this negative stuff. Let's just talk. Let's have an actual
That's
conversation.
that's wishful thinking. The dangerous side to writing is that you're putting it out into this sort of world where these anonymous people can have their way with it. And that part always kind of sucks for me. And I think that's because I vacillate between whether or not I'm a writer or whether or not I'm a comedian. And this year has been definitely a conversation with myself about what I actually am and do and stuff. But when it comes to my preference, people in an actual verbal back and forth will lose more times than they will on the internet, because the internet, man, it doesn't matter how good what I say is. You still get to go home and think about it for a day if you want to, and put your best foot forward and go, here's my rebuttal. And if I'm on stage and I say something and I'm working things out verbally, or even at wherever, your ability to talk back at my speed changes things.
Oh yeah.
And when I make you have to respond in real time, it shuts a lot of people up. So for those reasons alone, sometimes I gravitate towards, man, just let me talk.
I could not agree with you more. Like, it was funny earlier this year, I got into the dumbest conversation with people that got to the point now where I've just deleted comments on Twitter unless I tag you or something. And so it
Right.
was
But also like you're a big black dude. And you know what? That doesn't shut anybody up on the internet. But God damn it,
it really don't.
somebody wants to mouth off to you in line at the grocery store. That's all of us. You have power again. You know what I mean? That's the internet has detoothed everything. It's made it so easy for us to get yippy when we shouldn't.
It really does. It was the dumbest conversation. I liked the comic book. I tagged the writer to say, "Hey, I thought you did a fantastic job in this," and it turned into, "Oh, I see this guy's paying people to comment now." I'm like, "The fuck?" And it was just this whole thing about how, what was it? I was called a scarlet, and I was just like, "Did you just call me a biblical whore?" and so, and so I was okay. I don't care enough that I've over the last couple of years, I've come up with the I don't care enough to have this conversation with people. So I started sending people, thank you for tweeting, and sent them a gift of this wrestler I like, blowing them kisses. And one guy got so annoyed, you said that already. I said, and I'm gonna say it again. It just blew him a kiss.
Yeah, man, that game is. I just had to dismount from that whole. It's just no courage. It used to be back in the day. I thought there was some fun in these flame wars on these UBBs and all these message boards, and I was good, you know.
Yeah.
But anymore, I think you've got the right approach. Fuck them.
Look, man, I just love is like I'll see it. It's like that's cool. I'll see you next month or the next week when the next thing I write. I have fun. I appreciate the clicks, and I'll wipe my tears and the money I get from my paycheck. Go fuck
Yeah,
yourself.
we're gonna be fine.
So it's the end of the year, man. This is one of the things I love doing. It's like this is the third year we've done this, like the end of the year wrap up with movies and like
Uh-huh.
just life in general. Last year we discussed what was it? Our love and hate for Star Wars and Marvel movies and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And I found myself reading more comics than I ever have, watching more TV and things that I actually like, kind of getting out of my shell a little bit with certain things that I normally wouldn't watch. And it's made me infinitely happier just to kind of get into some new things. What have you watched
Good.
this year that you've loved?
Whoo. Whew. Oh, this is tough because not much at all. this has been the worst stretch, and I'm afraid we got a little bit further to go down before we come up.
Yes.
But by the time you got to the writer's strike and you had already gone through, this is the first time I've ever just I'm not even sure which Marvel movies I've missed. I think the one with the women this summer, whatever that was called. There might be something else. I don't think. I'm not real sure. I've been so bored by everything. Spider-Verse was incredible. Because Spider-Verse was going to be, there's no way it wasn't going to be. There is artists reaching past their capabilities in those films. They're incorporating ideas that are just fun and boundary pushing to see what can be accomplished in animation, and it's working. It's fresh, and it makes me so happy to watch those characters interact in that world. That was fun. Everything else has been a bit of a reboot or a secondary this or that. The only other thing I really enjoyed this year, before I mentioned a couple of things that were good, was Twisted Metal.
Oh my God, how great
And
was that?
I'm a fan of the game. You know, if you're an old PlayStationer like myself, you can't not have played Twisted Metal Black, Twisted Metal. I mean, these were my jams back on the old PlayStation. And to see, I don't like Anthony Mackie. I've said this. I'm not particularly fond of him. I
I'm not
haven't.
either.
Altered Carbon was his Captain America bores me to death. This chinless Falcon. I'm just not. It's not my bag. And then you put him in this, and I end up in love. I had more fun with this show. I ate every episode up like a delicacy, like a French grape. Every single one of them. Will Arnett is so good at everything he does.
He is.
I don't know if you watch Lego Masters. He hosts it. I don't even like the show. I like Will Arnett and his dad jokes. He is a breath of refreshing air to me, and him as Sweet Tooth is incredible. So that tops my list. One Piece was fun. I can make arguments for and against it, but I think it was more fun than it wasn't. Ahsoka had some moments. I think it was more fun than it wasn't. The last three.
One thing.
Go ahead.
I've never been so indifferent on a TV show in my life. Normally,
that's where you should be.
Yeah, I'm like
I said, it has some good, it has some bad. I feel like I'm kind of watching the live action Aladdin or something. It's just sort of okay. I get it. You change the people from cartoons to this, and you're making them into this. All right, it's a little not long ago enough to be nostalgic. It's also everything about it is just a half tick off. It's like a 11 millimeter socket and a 10.5 millimeter nut. It works, but it doesn't. Yeah. And but that's all of Star Wars, and that's all of Marvel, and it's all of this weird sort of just downward spiral of chasing something that I would argue, here's what they're missing. This is what, if you get down to all the stuff we've listed, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was one of the better films of the year, I think, in the genre. And the reason being, it had character, it had heart. And when I watch any of this other stuff, what you said is the right word. It's an apathy. You just don't fucking care. They introduce villains in Ahsoka that I mean, someone has to be the bad guy, right? But you picked, it's like they rolled the dice and just made up these two characters, and Shim or whatever her name was, and the dude and you tried to give it some backstory and give them a forlorn look off over an expansive waste. None of it makes any difference. You don't care. You haven't spent time with these characters. You haven't developed them. Everything is about new, fast, shiny, this or that. And it's the best comic. All right, let me stop and formulate a cohesive thought, because I will spiral off. But when I look at, we'll use Marvel and Star Wars as my two examples because they're Disney's doing the same thing with both of them. And they're trying to introduce you to something that matters, but they're taking from stories in the comics and they're not taking the good parts, right?
Yep.
If you look at the outer shell of Planet Hulk that they gave us in Ragnarok, right? A really cool world to let Thor play in the MCU. If I'm being honest, that film was art. It was a wonderful thing to watch. But Planet Hulk is about Hulk, and it's about the sense of betrayal, and it's about the sense of rebuilding yourself in a world that you've been cast out of, and trying to figure out who you are and face down your darkest inner parts and not be the thing you're destined to be. Like, dude, I'm chill bumping telling you the synopsis, right? That's the stuff that if you let me see that on TV or on film, if you took a character like Hulk and you wrote him out to the end and you gave him this happy ending and then you stripped him bare of that too, and if you did these things to characters we cared about, man, we'd go with you. But tell me how in the name of God I'm supposed to give a shit about anything that's stuck on screen in the last 4 years. Tell me where.
That's my problem with. So I love the Marvels. I thought the Marvels was everything that I wanted it to be. It was fun. Just give me something fun.
Cool.
Restart what you're doing. Give me like Aman Vellani was just she's my buddy Hobby says it best. You got to protect her at all costs. She is just adorable. She loves what she's doing. The passion in her projects is fantastic. She even co-wrote a Miss Marvel comic book this year, and it was fantastic. So you can tell the heart
Nice.
and desire to do that. Um, but then you give me Ant-Man, which was awful. Ant-Man was awful. I tried not to be so hard on movies, but without Jonathan Majors, that movie would be absolutely unwatchable. Shazam 2, I got 15 minutes in and said, nah. And I love Lucy Liu.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm not doing this. But then you give me Guardians of the Galaxy, which start to finish enthralled. Uh, Spider-Man, absolutely fantastic. Just visually, it was worth the price of missing. You can watch that on mute and still love
100%.
Super Mario Brothers. Like
That was fun.
Exactly. It's just fun. We don't need everything doesn't need a deep meaning. But then I go to a deep meaning. I love Barbie. I sat there and laughed and I got the point of it. There were some really cynical moments in it. There were some real heartfelt moments. The acting was good. They understood. There's one point in the movie where Margot Robbie goes on this whole speech and the narrator goes, the writers would like to let you know that Margot Robbie is not the right person to deliver this message. And I fell the fuck out because it was funny. We had this conversation before. Understanding the assignment.
Yep.
Secret Invasion did not understand the assignment because Secret Invasion isn't about a 5 or 6 part miniseries. Secret Invasion was special because it was a 10-year long, I think it was about 10 years or 8 years of something that was built up towards it. You can't do that in five episodes. And one of the reasons
you can't do it and attempt to just retcon the last 5 years. Oh no. It's been building for the last five however many years we needed to. They check the watch. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, you can't just do that.
It's like, what do you like? Daredevil on Netflix. Daredevil on Netflix was absolutely flawless. It's one of the few Marvel projects that, from the very first time that anyone speaks into the very last time someone speaks, that show was flawless. They understood the assignments. They gave us something different. They gave us great acting. They people were really like it was new. It was original. It was fresh. And that's
there was stuff at stake for Matt Murdock, for all of the characters. There were. Remove the costume, right? Remove for all intents and purposes, he didn't have one the entire first season. It was just him in a black hood.
Mm-hmm.
A show like that is about people, that happen to live in a superhero universe.
Yeah.
And we're currently seeing a superhero universe that happens to have some people in it. And that's what gets lost to me. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like, it's all this stuff. So Gen V, probably my favorite combo project of the last maybe even decade. I love Gen V. I loved every minute of it. I'm also Mr. PC, so there's a lot of stuff that I actually loved about it. There's like the representation, the message behind it, but they weren't like force feeding you shit. It was like, hey, here it is. It's part of the show. It's connected. Now we can move on, but still continue with everything that's doing. And it still had that same hardcore and violence that you expect from the boys' universe. Again, understood the assignment. But I can't figure out if my favorite show this year was Fall of the House of Usher or Beef.
Ooh, well, I can't help you because I've watched neither, and I
Uh,
have been told I have to watch both
oh, or
repeatedly so much so.
The Last of Us, that one too.
So, and that's the other one I left off of my list that I have not watched, and I haven't watched it because I haven't played the games, and I just it's an interesting reason not to. It may be a stupid reason. Matter of fact, it may be the best reason to watch it. In fact, but I don't know. It's one of those. All three of those that you mentioned have just sort of drifted by me, and I don't know if it's because Beef not falling in this category, but because I've been less darker horror genre driven perhaps this year than I have been in previous years. Those would be my only reasons, but all three great.
All three are great. I will say this. I love Pedro Pascal, and I liked his interpretation of Joel. It's not as good as the video game.
I've seen a lot of the cutscenes from the video. I mean, because I'm always making the case for. Well, I haven't played it. I've seen the scenes because I'll go online and I'll watch stuff because I'm interested in the story. I think the Spider-Man 2 video game is arguably the best Spider-Man movie that's come out in a decade.
I
It's the I was that turn, not to spoil anything, but the turn from Act 2 into Act 3 where the main villain basically changes direction was so welcoming and fun and just stayed in the lanes of good storytelling, and it takes you through Craven and Venom, but also most importantly the stuff we've been talking about, his relationship with Harry. And that's at the core of it, what this whole game is about, and it's why I cared so damn much going into the end of it. It's just good.
Oh, it's funny you talk about story. The original creator of God of War doesn't like the direction of Kratos because he said he's making him he made him, I guess, sentimental and weaker. And I said to myself, I understand how someone who created a character would feel a certain way about someone who's taken their art and turned it into something different. On the flip side of that, Kratos slowly became one of my two favorite characters after he had Atreus. He became a more vulnerable character, but he was still a vicious, murderous.
Yes. Here's my I can agree with the guy. I agree and disagree, right? I play devil's advocate on this side. I'll tell you that once you make art, it ain't yours anymore, whatever it turns into in the world, blah, blah, blah. But also, if you create something with a certain intent, and this is what it's supposed to be, and to me, what gets messy in a lot of things is I don't know that Kratos is a hero, right? Kratos is a weapon of destruction for a video game. It's like trying to tell me Frogger's a hero. No, Frogger is the thing that moves when you press the buttons. It's any more than Pac-Man has a personality. It's the thing that makes the things you're going up against go away. It's a tool in the game. So when you turn into these open world games like you have now with God of War and some of the others that have been rebooted, you end up having to create stories around them, right? We can't just watch him swing chains and have stuff explode, right? You got to put some kind of story in there if we're going to fall for it. It's got to be more than we got with Devil May Cry, right? Like it's got to be an actual story. So you end up with him in all the scenarios with a kid having to become a bit and he becomes a different character. This isn't Kratos to me. This Kratos that looks like this and is voiced like this and acts like this is a different guy than the button mashing, blade swinging Kratos I played with when I first picked up God of War.
Yes.
And whether or not that should happen, whether or not you should take something that is pure and representative of a certain emotion, in that case, probably rage or whatever, and try to turn it into something multi-dimensional or whatever. I don't know. You know, I like just having a thing that is pure destruction. That's what and I think you can do. I think you can do binary black and white, good and evil, and also do character development, right? You can have a bad guy that is as one-dimensional as Skeletor, right? He just represents evil. And then I think you can also have characters that exist in that world, as Kevin Smith was very adept at showing, who do have some depth and do have some complexity without being stripped of their absolute nature, right? Like I feel like Kratos has been a little bit.
So I'll agree, and it's funny. I agree, disagree with you, because at the end of the third God of War, as he sits back and just looks at all the destruction and goes, "Look what I just did." I could make a debate that the creator set up everything that's happening now.
True.
Like,
yes. Yeah. Yeah. If you're willing to, and it's like all good stories, right? It's where you put the brackets around. If you zoom far enough out, it's but if I'm zoomed in like I often am on these recent games, where all right, you know, the big picture, he's still Kratos, he's still the thing I love. But I'm like, I spent 60 hours rowing a boat with him and his kid. So
yeah.
You know what I mean? Is he like
you know what? You got me there.
There's no right or wrong here.
There really isn't. And again, it's funny to your point. You talk about these characters, like look at you know who's a good example of this? Deadpool. From what he was back in his first appearance in X-Force to the character he's become now, there were little certain things that have changed about him, but he's always remained the merc with the mouth. He's always been this incredibly tragic, bad luck, something horrible is going to happen to him, kind of like anti-hero. I've told people for years that Wolverine wasn't a good character until the mid 90s, maybe. Like it took him decades to become a good character. And if you look at what he was supposed to be, it's shocking that he's got to 50 years coming up next year, and his popularity continues to grow. And that's with the Wolverine movies, for the most part, not being good. Like, you know what I mean? So it's a good character. These are good character studies for what to and not to do when you're taking these intellectual properties and moving on with them. Last time you were on, we talked about Mega Man and how just like Mega Man, like you said, Mega Man 2 is one of the greatest video games, or if not the greatest video game ever created. You got some bad guys, you get some powers, you figure out how to use those powers on the bad guys, you move on, and you keep going. I played it recently.
So satisfying.
It is the most frustrating game in the history of ever. But again, to your point, once you finish doing something and beating it, it is absolutely satisfying. And I think the creators knew it. It's like, hey, you got to use Bubble Man. You know, the weapon you never used throughout this game. Here's the one you got to use.
It challenges you, man. It pushes you right to the edge of your sanity and ability while still being doable.
Yes.
That gives you a sense of satisfaction you cannot get anywhere else. And I think I'm trying to remember this story. I'm going to fuck this up, but because I don't know enough about classical music, but there's something to the 80s video games that The designers knew exactly where the edges of childhood capability lie. Like they knew at what point this would be addicting enough to drive me to finish it. And they knew at what point I would throw the controller down and say, man, fuck this. They knew. And they built games that stayed right inside that window. And there's a I think it's Stravinsky who composed The Rite of Spring. And the beginning of The Rite of Spring has an oboe solo. And there's a story that this guy tried out for the position. And Stravinsky said no, because the guy was too good. And you go, well, why would that be the case? And in another example, this happens to be Stravinsky as well. He fired a violist who was too good to play the part. He said, I don't want to hear the sound of this part being played properly. I want to hear the sound of someone trying to play this part.
Oh.
And if you listen to that oboe solo at the beginning of Rite of Spring, you'll hear, played properly, the notes will strain, right? Like you'll hear, or in the viola section, I think you'll hear the notes really played like to the edge of shaking. And too good of a player will play it too clean, and you won't get the tension that's supposed to be there in that part of the music. And I just think that's a very interesting an interesting thing to think about, because I feel like that's what a lot of the 80s video games were us being stretched right to the edge of and then when you got past it, you felt a little invincible as a kid, like, oh, I can play the oboe solo now. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't perfect, it was strainy, but I got there. And it turns out that that's probably the best place in the world to exist in, you know, just right on the edge.
Oh yeah. So on the flip side of all that, I I have 3 projects that I loved because they were fun. One of them was actually really good, and I'm disappointed it didn't get a sequel. Dungeons and Dragons was an absolute must watch. I loved Dungeons and Dragons. I'm also a Chris Pine fan. I love Michelle Rodriguez. And I remember one of the criticisms was Dungeons and Dragons was too silly. And someone tweeted, if you don't understand why this movie was silly, you've shown me that you've never understood what Dungeons and Dragons actually is.
That's the core of it, man. Dungeons and Dragons was so self-aware and so fun. It's unfortunate that it had to be surrounded by so many similar in visual, like The Witcher, just everything that's dumping out 47th iteration of Wizards and Warriors or whatever. But if you took it out of that competition and just looked at it as, is this entertaining, man, it brought me back to even the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon from Saturday mornings, where, you know, Cavalier and Ranger and all those guys, and Chris Pine is so good. That's definitely, it's on my list as a victory this year.
Oh, and before I forget,
Totally original.
The Legend of Vox Machina is absolute perfection every time it comes on. So I'm not even gonna add that to the list. Like, that's someone says, why do you like Legends of Vox Machina so much? I'm like, it's medieval Guardians of the Galaxy with more cursing and violence. Like, that's all it is. Second on the list is I'm going with the most recent Fast and the Furious movie, and I think I've mentioned this to you before. Jason Momoa deserves all of the fucking awards for everything he's done in this. I never thought
Harry Rock.
Yeah, Harry better rock.
He's Rocka. That's what he.
Chief Rocka, number 1 Chief Rocka. He is just. He's Johnny. He was Jack Sparrow in a better suit. And lastly, fucking Cocaine Bear.
Yeah, huh? Yeah. It's that, to me, is all that's left. There's nothing left but the ridiculous. We've seen everything else. It's, you gotta, I mean, if you think about, do you know the top let's the top 10 most anticipated films of 2024. Every last one of them's a sequel, and most of them a threequel or so. We've rebooted everything. Next year, Ghostbusters Frozen Kingdom, Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, Mad Max Furiosa, Quiet Place 12 or whatever it is, the second quarter of Dune, Venom 3, Kingdom of the War, the Planet of the Underwater Apes,
Bad Boy,
Joker with
Joker.
Angelina Jolie or Lady Gaga. Then you got the 57th reboot of Karate Kid, and finally Deadpool 3. Thank God there's a cocaine bear. Thank Heavenly Father, there's a cocaine bear. Next year, I hope it's meth piranhas, and I hope
Oh,
it's heroin gators.
it's
And
Meth
what?
Gator.
Which one? A raccoon? Did we
No,
get?
no, it's Meth Gator.
Oh, meth gator. Okay, so yeah, that's the we need all that. Whatever you can put on screen that hadn't been put on screen yet. It was a blissful part where there was a sharktopus and a something tornado. All those were fun. They're dumb. I'm not gonna watch them really, but at least there's hope that someone out there is thinking of something that hasn't quite been done before. Because everything else is just a reboot of a reboot of a reboot, and I'm so tired of it, Mark.
When I tell you that I dove into a comic book called Something is Killing the Children, and I just could not believe how fucking great this comic book was. I've never, like, first off, when have you read a comic book where they're killing kids? I couldn't
It's
believe.
not often enough. That's
What was it? I think it was the second Alien versus Predator when they killed a kid. I was like, oh, we're going there. Cool. But
Dark Horse used to do it.
and so I'm watching this. I'm reading this book, and then they really get into the lore behind it. And I'm a sucker for like a good origin story and telling me why these characters are messed up as they are. And the artwork is different. It's a little grittier. This character is just a tortured badass, and I love it so much. And so like I'm going down this like rabbit hole of comic books I wouldn't normally read, and it's just reminding me that like there are so many original ideas out there.
Oh
Nobody
yeah,
really wants to either put money behind them or
it's risky,
yeah. And it was
but it's changing, man. And I said this last year, and I repeat it this year. It's the technology is democratizing everything. Like I'm almost to the point where if I have an idea for a cartoon, I don't know that I may only be a year or two away from being able to create my entire own animated world if I want to. So I think we'll see some of these stories from some of these creators find their way into the world. And I think you're gonna see it's the gatekeepers are already sort of falling, right?
yeah.
The to accessibility. You ain't gonna wait for Netflix to make something for something to get made. And that's what's got me interested going forward is not what the big studios are gonna make, but what the really great creators are gonna make once the limitations to making stuff get removed.
We talk about great creators and we talk about not needing these big companies to do it. Let's talk about you. The Andy Huggins
Oh,
special,
haha.
the Andy Huggins special, early bird special, which was so I was a little late to it. So I've been like trying my best to create myself and trying to like relax. So I'm going back listening to old episodes of the Whiskey Brothers that I may have missed over the last few months, and your show, the Slade Ham Experiment, and I was like, oh shit, the special's out. So I'm playing NBA 2K, and my wife's in the room doing whatever she's doing, and I'm playing video games, and she's half-ass listening and still laughing. Like, you know what I mean? So, and that's what you can really tell when someone's like, when you get a really good anything, where someone's not really listening, but they're still picking up on everything that's going on. Their brains are registering it. And I love that the jokes were obvious and subtle at the same time, because there were certain points where he would say something and then there would be a pause, and it was like a perfect time pause, not like the you say something and then it's like a 5 second pause, like one of my favorite Dave Chappelle jokes when he does juicy smoothie. It was that kind of timing where it was just like he was like, all right, y'all caught up, cool, let's keep it moving. And I
Andy Andy's time. So Andy Huggins is 74 now, and this is his first full-length comedy special. But what you saw, it is a master class in timing. It is, you are watching someone who understands comedic timing like the Pope understands Catholicism. I mean, this is what Andy does. So when you watch some of these jokes hold, there's right at the very beginning, two things happen if you watch the special, and it's on Apple TV and a bunch of other places also. But if you watch him walk out, he comes up, he stands next to the bar stool, and he lets the round of applause happen. And then he taps his finger on the stool 3 times, almost as if he's subconsciously calling this room full of animals to order. And they all politely sit down and begin to listen. And he takes his seat, and when he drops the opening line about paying off his school loans, and then he says his second line where he goes, the hard part of stand-up comedy used to be comedy.
Yeah, and I laughed.
He
so
lets that
goddamn hard.
line he lets that line hang, and it turns into, like, he knows the applause break it is going to become. And I cannot tell you how difficult that is to do on stage, to trust that something you wrote is not just going to get the laugh, but going to get the real thing it deserves, and to have the faith to hold for it and let it happen and then move on as if it didn't happen. It's so magic to watch him work. And I'm glad that comes across, because you really are, for about 45 to 50 minutes, watching this old man do masterwork.
You know what else kind of came across, and it didn't dawn on me until you started talking about that? Confidence. It was the confidence in what he was saying. Like that pause.
Unquestionable.
It was just like he's like he walked, as a phrase goes, like it was like big dick energy when he walked in. Older Navy.
Yeah.
That shouldn't have been funny.
That's, you know what I mean?
Older Navy should not have been funny, but it was.
But it's because that's a perfect example of the joke, right? I used to shop at Old Navy. Now I shop at Older Navy. Soon I'll be shopping at Burial at Sea. That's the exact kind of, if it's just Old Navy and Older Navy. And again, this is where the absolute nuance comes into this. I can't do these jokes justice, because Andy, every single word in the joke, when Andy tells it, is chosen properly. There is no accidental this way or that. There's a way. And so if you just say Old Navy and Older Navy, this, I got it. I see what you did there. But when you add Burial at Sea, you do a couple of things. You turn the hyperbolic up all the way, right? We've gone from old to old. Now you're dead. And then you've chosen the most ridiculous way to say that, but still in line with Navy. It's just, there's layers of brilliance to it that by the time you sit down, you go, oh, it was just no, that's got like 5 things to it, man. That's good. That's good. That's good comedy.
Yeah, I highly recommend it, man. Like, and the best part about it is, like, because I know with some comedy specials you have to listen to them in order, because there's a storytelling, there's a flow to it. With Andy, I can just put that shit on shuffle and just let it go.
200. It's 200 plus jokes, and it stays on theme in about 6 or 7 different themes. But once he moves into a different topic, it's not like it's a linear story. It's just a dude telling joke after joke after joke. And when you get to the end of it, you realize that he's done it for an hour, and you've taken 200 punchlines to the head, and it's good. It's good.
Yeah. And it's funny, like, listening to him, then I decided to go back and re-listen to this Bob Newhart thing I found on Apple Music. And I was like, oh my God, like this is actually pretty damn, like, you know what I mean? So, like, it's not
compared to anyone.
Yeah, like, so it's not just listening to him, like his influence has like got me listening to other things. And it's like, okay, well, what else have I been missing? Like, you know what I mean? And it's cool.
Newhart, and you'll go back and listen to Woody Allen's stand-up. Because Andy will tell you that's his probably biggest comedic influence. And you don't think of Woody Allen as a stand-up comic, but
I mean,
some of the best comedy from that era. yeah. That's my point exactly. But if you get to listen to him tell the Moose story, It's worth a Google.
And you also did some great things this year too. You put together your own, and this isn't your first stand-up. Well, I don't know if they're categorized as stand-up specials, but three-legged unicorn. Um,
Yeah, redemption. So I've here's the thing is, and I went back, man. You were talking about listening to old episodes of stuff. The Slade Ham experiment for me always serves as more than anything else, just kind of like a verbal diary, right? Here's me where I'm at in this moment and what I'm thinking, and talking out loud, just like writing for me, allows me to organize my thoughts. So that's really what the show is. And I use it predominantly to winnow down stand up comedy ideas. If you were to listen to that show over the span of a year, probably from September of 22 to August of 23, you will have heard me work out almost every idea that made itself into my new comedy special. Um, and what's ended up happening is I listen back to this episode and I hear myself at the end of last year talking about how great it would be if I tackle some of the things that I really want to, right? Figuring out how to fund a comedy special, figuring out how to write this new show and get it where it needs to be, figuring all these things out, wanting to travel more for personal reasons and not as much for some of the business stuff I've been doing with comedy. And a lot of things I was just sort of musing out loud. And I get to the end of this year, and there's a part of me that realizes if I look at my year one way, I have spent more money than I've ever spent in my life. I have less money than I've ever had in my life. I worked less than I've ever worked in my career in terms of shows per year. A lot of things were not fantastic if that's the list I was keeping. The other side is I spent 2 weeks in Japan at the beginning of the year. I led a wonderful group out to my 58th country in Kenya and parts of Africa. I just got back from 2 weeks in Chile and Argentina, which were countries 59 and 60. In the process, we landed distribution for Andy's comedy special, something we didn't have at the end of last year. I just had a film. And then I raised the money for my own. And then I booked the shows to run the special beforehand, and we booked the theater, and I hired the right people, and we taped it. And by God, I've seen the first cut, and it's we nailed it. I don't know where it ends up next year. I've got to wait because it could end up on a Netflix. Like we made a real thing that's not, this isn't it's and here's why I'm saying all this. One, because I need to hear it for myself. But two, because I knew at the end of last year something had to give. I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that one of the walls in the house I'd been building wasn't up to snuff. Maybe more, maybe everything, foundation and roof too. But if I had to do what I'd been doing for another year, I probably was going to quit. Wow. And not because I wanted to quit. I mean, not because I wanted to quit or whatever else, but because I was ultimately staring down the fact that I wasn't doing what I wanted. I was saying I'm a stand-up comedian. And then I'm defining stand-up comedian as person who works on stage as many nights as possible. That is my weird definition of comic. If you're not on stage, you're not a comic. That's what rattled around in my brain forever. The more you're working, the more you're a comic. And the truth is, that doesn't mean anything, because I would go 2-3 years. Yeah, I put out albums, right? I put out 3 albums, and then I put out the Whiskey Brothers special, which was premature, but awesome. But I wasn't leaving a body of work. If you get to about 2010, 12, 14 with me, the last decade, I've been working, but not making anything. I've been nothing but money, right? I collect the check, but you're performing for people on cruise ships. You're playing the same club you've always played, or you're overseas doing a good job for the military and this and that. But I have a set that I do that works when you're in these scenarios. It's not the place to take chances. I can't go out there and develop an idea that might be controversial. There's a lot of downside to some of these gigs. So when I looked at it in that regard, I was like, I got to do something different. I've slowly been working towards this, subconsciously or not, doing specials for my friends, learning my way around film, learning to produce, learning all those pieces. And then I kept saying it out loud. Well, I need a special. And eventually I pulled the trigger. I went, we're going to do this. And the Kickstarter I learned to do, and that was effective. And then I had the money, and then I built the team, and then I finished writing the show, and then I took it on the road. And all of that in the face of not having the money or the stage time or the things I would have had I gone a different route. Now I'm sitting here with a finished film in a world where everybody else is just starting to do these 3-camera shoots in clubs, small stuff, right? These clubs are realizing that there's a need for these clips, and they'll set up 3 cameras in a small room. And comics are going, I got a comedy special. And Mark, yeah, they do, in a manner of speaking. They're my friends, a lot of them. And they do have a multicam shoot in a comedy club, but they don't have a comedy special. They don't have what I have right now. And that's a full concert stage in a theater. Scarface from the Ghetto Boys introduces me, man, on stage. It's the coolest shit. I come out to a standing ovation. I do an hour. I take another standing ovation. I say goodnight. It's the best comedy I've ever written. And every one of those jokes does exactly what I wanted the joke to do. And the people who edited it and the people who are finishing it are all better at making films than I could ever dream of being. And all of that comes from just weirdly, man, saying some shit out loud and sticking to it. And that's what I'm proudest of, is that I can kind of look back a year ago and see all the stuff I was just starting to vocalize and realize, man, that if you just do it every day, at the end of a year or so, you got a thing, you know?
Yeah.
I got a thing.
You know, it's funny you say that. Because it actually kind of transitions to something that I love talking to you about, and just like growth. One of my favorite episodes I've done in general, period, is the conversation we had about not being the people that we were previously. And this year, I had a really bad, I hit depression, not as hard as I have before in previous years, but this is probably the first depression I've had as a creative. Didn't get this job I wanted, super pissed off. Thought I was gonna get it. I was ready to leave my job, which I like. I enjoy my job, but the people I work with are dickheads. I'll tell you some stuff after I stop hitting record.
Yeah.
But so I had to get over myself, and when I did the my interview and I did my sample writing, I started using Grammarly.
Mhm.
Started making didn't realize the mistakes I was making, and instead of being the stubborn person that I was, I said, I'm going to continue to use this app to make me a better writer. A couple weeks ago, I realized that all the red underlines and suggestions and stuff like that slowly started to disappear. Because
Isn't it great when you look up one day and there's not a very to delete?
Yes,
Isn't that the best?
it really
Isn't
is.
that the best?
And then I've always agreed with quality over quantity, but then I'm realizing that I said it, I preached it, but I didn't really actually believe it. So now the more I'm writing, the more I'm realizing that, like, I don't need 100 words to get my point across if 50 will do. Sometimes I don't need the $10 words when a 25-cent one will do. So creatively, I've gotten better.
I'll give you one tip on that too. That I found when writing. When I look for a synonym, right? When I'm trying to find another way to say something, I used to be very quick to just right click it, look for synonyms, or take it to a thesaurus and look for synonyms.
Yes.
But the truth is, if you look it up in a dictionary, if you look the definition up first, it'll often give you simpler ways to say it instead of more flowery ways to say it. And it's one of the coolest tips. You're just like, oh yeah, I don't need to look for the complicated word.
Exactly. Like one of my favorite things in the one of my favorite things in the world to do while I'm writing is type in something and then put in synonym. But then I started using definition. I'll read the definition. Okay, I don't need to do this. I can think up of something completely different. And then when that happens, I have then successfully not just restructured the sentence, I've restructured the whole goddamn paragraph.
Yes, sir.
So it's been
Yes, sir.
so creatively, this has been one hell of a learning experience for me this year. Um, I had a goal last year of reading 2,000 comic books. I fell.
Real quick to your last thought, and then before you move on to this one, I can't remember whose quote this is. Man, I might have to look this back up. Anyway, it's basically the point is that it's you need to be more interested in resolving your blind spots than you are uncomfortable in hearing about them, if that makes any more sense. You
It
want to
does.
be more concerned with the blind spots going away than you are getting the bad feedback, which is how we often are, right? Some is, oh well, I won't listen, I won't change anything I'm doing because that means I have to acknowledge where I'm wrong. But if you can acknowledge, wow, my writing could be stronger, then it changes the whole game around you. Right now, this isn't bad feedback, this is constructive feedback that is going to help you get rid of all those red lines that Grammarly keeps finding.
So, and it's funny because my wife is, um, I'm thankful to not have any yes men in my circle. You know what I mean? And my wife is my biggest critic, and she's also my biggest fan. And sometimes for me, it is really difficult to hear her say these things. And then later on, I'll say to her, "Thank you for telling me," because I needed to hear it. And you're the only person I know I can go to directly and have a real sit down conversation about stuff. And one of the things I love about our relationship is just the fact that I remember we were debating AI with writers, and we were sitting at a bar one day, it was our date night, and we had this really long, deep and dope conversation about that. And it was one of those things, it was just like, and this is why I married you, this is why she's my best friend, this is why. So if I didn't have somebody like that telling me that, like, hey, you're wrong here, like, you know what I mean, I'd be fucked up to the world, like, you know what I mean. And people like, and she's also not one of those people who goes, some people just give you information you didn't fucking ask for.
Oh yeah.
So like, she'll say to me, do you want my opinion? And I'll go, like, I'll say, if I'm ready for it, I'll go, yes. I'll go, yeah, but maybe not now.
It's a good habit. Do you want me to listen, or you want me to respond?
Yeah. So, but like that actually, but all the criticism she gave me over the year, all the stuff, had all the my therapist has been heavy on me being creative this year. When I finished my book, he was like, well, what are you doing next? What's next with the book? Have you done a second edit? Are you going to do a third edit? What are you doing with this? And after he told me to watch, and so he's never does anything without a purpose. He tells me to watch this 17-minute YouTube clip on the creators of the Ninja Turtles and all
Oh
the
yeah,
stuff.
Eastman and Laird.
Yeah, and all the stuff they went through. And then I looked at it and I realized the book was never done. I was completing it to say I completed it. And he was just, and so he was like, so what are you gonna do now? I said, I think I'm gonna go back and write my book, do the things that I want to do. And so this year was the year I learned to kind of step out of my shell when it comes to being creative things. And that's where, like I said, last year, my goal was 2,000 comic books. And I set a goal, and that was a mistake. Don't set a goal, just do it. This year, I'm at 1,400, probably going to hit 1,500 by the end of the year, just because I'm enjoying reading. I'm absorbing the knowledge more now than when I was just trying to just read words. And the more that,
When you're, I'm always interested because I do this to myself. When I say I want to do right goal setting, and they're really dangerous things depending on how you phrase them. I just had I had a conversation with a friend of mine who I was helping him shape up his set for a show he's got coming up. And one of his goals right now is what was a Netflix special, right? And that's noble, is what it is, but it's very finite. It doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't, the same way 2000 comic books really doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room, because it suddenly makes 1900 comic books a failure, which is insane, right? That's crazy to call it. So I always try to distill down what's the emotion there, right? Like when you say someone's like, I want a new car. Well, you don't want a new car. You want all that emotional good stuff that comes with having a new car. You want to feel successful. You want to feel like people are looking at you, whatever those things are. You want attention, whatever that might be. So, like with the comic books, it's what's at the core of that? Is it wanting to just be deeper, more deeply steeped in the lore of, certain comic book properties? Is it wanting to be better educated so you can write about it? Is it because, then you could start to define goals that are, so much more like not just reachable but powerful too. Like, oh wow,
Yeah.
that helps me.
That's what it is. It's help. So and it's also great that I enjoy what I'm reading too. So not only is it helping me create something and giving me new ideas and
Mm-hmm.
character development and characters in general. Like we had a conversation about just something as simple as Fredo saying "do not" is something that he said. If he says "don't," you'd be like, "You'll talk like that."
Right.
These kind of things. Or
Yep.
Billy Butcher. I love Billy Butcher, the from the boys, the comic book. I loved
Mm-hmm.
his character in the comic book. Not a big fan of him in the TV show, but it's again different medium, different platform.
Yeah.
But the Billy Butcher in the comic book, and there's a quote that's used because I'm actually rereading it now. When Mother's Milk goes, Butcher doesn't waste anything, not a word, not a movement, not even a goddamn smile. And that is the core of the character. And
Yeah.
I reread Why the Last Man, and Brian K. Vaughan. I keep trying to figure out what it was that caused the gender side. And he says, I'll tell you, but the funny thing is he never says when I'm gonna tell you. And as I'm reading it, I'm Googling it again like I always do. And he says, it's in the story, you just don't know where it is. And so every time I read it, I go back and I'm trying to find these little intricate things that I think I would have missed. And I never
Uh-huh.
do. And all that makes me want to do is go back and read it again. So I'm finding new artists that I love. I'm finding new writers that I love. I'm learning different styles. I'm learning how to connect mysteries. I'm learning uh, the depth of bumbling characters, the insecurities
Yes.
of these great characters. And so the reading has become, while there is no real goal anymore. I'm just reading to read. And now that I'm at the end of the year, I'm like, hey, how many can I get to by New Year's Eve? You know what I mean? But
Well, let me give you some reason to all of this, because as creatives, right? If your goal in life is to make something, even if you don't know what, even if your brain's just a jumble of I don't know what, to make something you need pieces, you need parts, you
yes,
need materials. It's Jordan Peele talks about writing a first draft as him putting a bunch of sand in the sandbox. And then everything past that is him building a sandcastle. And when you're considering storytelling, comic book writing, prose writing, poetry for that fucking matter, what you need is a lot of raw material. You need to read an enormous amount of story. You need to read different genres. You need to see how these characters interact. You need to see how their failures impact them. You need to see how groups of people work together, how this impacts the world. You need to read small stories, short stories, right? If you're reading someone like Neil Gaiman, you want to read the standalone issues, but you also want to read the long story arcs. You want to read things like the Kang Dynasty, right? And see how that plays out on screen. And then you want to see how that plays out versus what they're doing on the print. And then you want to absorb all these stories. So when you're reading, you're just putting sand in that box. It's going to allow you at some point, when it comes time for you to put your own stuff into it, to have all sorts of things to start with, story structures and styles. There's only a couple of different stories, right? There's journeys and love stories. There aren't that many. It's, you can watch Kurt Vonnegut talk about the structure of story and how there's only a few, right? You can have everything and lose it all and get it back. You can lose everything and get something, and but there's only a certain number of ways a story can go. So as long as you're sucking those in and absorbing them and seeing all the different ways they can be played with and toyed with and combined and exploded and put back together, then you're not wasting time, and you're also not ever limited by the amount you do or don't read. You could take one comic book and spend a year dissecting it and get as much out of that as you could by reading 2,000 very quickly. So
Yeah.
I don't think the number matters. I think that, you're reading for the right reasons, because these are master creators telling stories in visual and writing form that, how do you not learn from that? It's way
Like
more than just escapism.
like you talk about like you're a huge Neil Gaiman fan. Like you
Yeah,
much to
I
your
heard of it.
co-host's chagrin about you going.
Bro, I flew to New York, drove upstate, stayed in an apple orchard, and listened to Neil Gaiman talk about telling stories 2 nights in a row, unapologetically so. He is it was wonderful.
Now, I remember my introduction to him, like a lot of comic book fans, was Sandman.
Naturally.
This guy I used to work with, he was like, I was reading comic books one day, and he was like, "You're a comic book fan?" I said, "Oh, hell yeah, big comic book fan." He goes, "Have you ever read Sandman?" I go, I'm like, "The dude with the mask?" He goes, "No." So he brings in
Yeah.
the next day. He brings in all 14 volumes and leaves them at my
Yeah.
locker, and then goes read them. I open the page, and all I see are words, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Dear God!" So initially, I wasn't gonna read. I'm like, I'm not reading all this shit. One day, I'm sitting in the booth at my old job. I was like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. I ran through the first 8 volumes of that in like a week because it was so damn good. And the, the best interpretation I can give anybody of that comes before the second issue of that even starts. They capture Dream. This guy's pleading with him, and Dream says nothing the entire time. Doesn't say anything then to him. And then it's like now. And I appreciated it was the first time I really appreciated the character on this level because he remained that same patient character throughout it. He never really overreacted. It was kind of just everything.
Unflappable.
Yes. And it was beautiful. It was beautifully done. And I was scared when Netflix adapted it. I was like, oh God, please don't ruin this for me. You guys ruined Lock and Key. Don't ruin this for me. And then it came out, and I said, wow, you guys put together a work of art. And it made me very happy. And
Yeah.
on the flip side, you have a guy like Garth Ennis, who a buddy of mine calls Garth Ennis a crazy person. He's written The Boys, he wrote Preacher, and probably every definitive Punisher run. And
Mhm.
the one thing I can say is when he wants to write a methodical, crazy, violent person, he does it in such a way where he makes them very charismatic, but not in the way that you
Mhm.
look at someone like maybe like the Joker, who's so like animated that sometimes it's smooth. I'm reading The Punisher, and it's different from the way he's talking to people because he wants people to think that he's this psychotic killing machine. But as he's thinking, he doesn't say the blood was red. He goes, my face is crimson.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing here. And so I've read this, and there are certain books I read every year. I read The Punisher every year. I read Invincible every year. The Boys and Why the
Mhm.
Last. Those are the 4 comic books I will read every year because I get
Ryan
something.
Otley's such a badass.
Who is?
Ryan Otley.
Oh
Is that
God,
the yeah,
yes,
that's the
yes,
invisible guy, yeah?
yes.
Yeah.
And oh God, don't get me started on like just the artwork that I've seen this year, and just Ryan Otley draws faces
Mhm.
and violence. The way he draws violence, it's
Yeah.
so primal.
What did he do? Did he do a Hulk run I liked?
Yes,
Was he on? I'm trying to.
he just did a Hulk run last year or the year before. Um,
Yeah, I feel like it was recent.
and again, he made the Hulk just like this evil character. Oh, and character development. They've made Bruce Banner more dangerous than the Hulk. And I
Mhm.
love that because people forget Bruce Banner is not a good person. He's never been a good person. The
Yeah.
Hulk's actually the hero of this. Bruce Banner is an asshole.
That's I've skipped through a lot of the just all of the Hulk because it was I went back and reread. We were talking about Planet Hulk and World War Hulk, both back to back, and then some of the old stuff with Rick Jones because I had gone through and was reading the Todd McFarlane stretch of that, and then that makes you think of Peter David, and then you go, it's just bing bang boing. There's so many different stretches of the Hulk to skip through, and then it makes the Hulk because there's so many different Hulks, right? You got stupid, dumb, original, all those, and then you got Gray Hulk, and then you got Red, all those different versions. But the Hulk that really the one in Planet Hulk was the one. I think that's my favorite Hulk just because he's the beast in control of the beast, that's keeping Banner hidden and I just enjoy again, maybe that's the theme of this episode too, just something right on the edge of its capability.
Yes. Let me
Just struggling to hold it together and god damn it, get away from me or I'll pop. I'm right on the edge. But that's such a fascinating place to watch a human being exist.
there's I'm trying to find it, but there's the best Hulk series I ever read was the Jason Aaron's Immortal Hulk. And this Hulk
Oh,
is called Devil Hulk.
Jason Aaron, is he the same? He's not the guy who wrote all the Thor stuff I love that had
It is. It's him. Same guy.
what? The one
No,
who
no,
wrote
sorry, not
Gore the
Jason Aaron.
God
I'm
Butcher?
sorry, not Jason Aaron. Al Ewing. Al Ewing. I'm sorry. Not Jason Aaron.
Okay.
Al Ewing. So,
I was about to say if this dude wrote all this stuff.
but Al Ewing wrote this version of the Hulk, who was just like he literally does seem like the devil. Like he's just so this Bruce Banner is at a gas station. This guy trying to rob a gas station. He turns around, shoots a kid. Bruce Banner's about to Hulk out. Guy shoots Bruce Banner before he can. Kills him. Nighttime comes, and the whole thing with this is the daytime is Banner's, the night belongs to the Hulk.
Gotcha.
So you can kill Bruce Banner during the day, but when the nighttime comes, he regenerates. So
Yeah.
it's a very horror like thing. Even the way, like, best way I could describe it was when he transforms, it looks like Werewolf of London. Like you see the bones
Yeah.
stretching, and it's just monstrous.
It ain't pretty.
Oh, not at all. So, and the artwork's fantastic. So he finds the guy who did this, and he talks about power. And this guy's saying, like, how does it feel to hold that gun in your hand? I bet you feels powerful. Why don't you turn it? Why don't you use it on someone who deserves it? He wants to use it on somebody. He shoots the Hulk. The Hulk looks down at the bullets, wipes them off his chest, and goes, someone who deserves it. This guy goes on. He's terrified. And he goes, I'm not a bad person, am I? And the Hulk looks at him, smiles, and goes, what do you think? The next page shows this guy. He keeps him alive, but he breaks every bone in his body. And this is basically the theme of the whole book is the Devil Hulk is the one who protects all of the Hulks.
Yeah.
He's the other
Yeah.
personality. So when Bruce killed his father, it was actually the Devil Hulk taking over Bruce's body. and someone fucked with Bruce Banner, and he came out. He goes, "You messed with a little guy," and I take that personally. And it's just, it, it's one of the best comic books I read. It gets to a point where they bring in the other personalities, and like it kind of switches. Like you start talking like he's Bruce Banner, then he starts talking to Joe Fixit. So then his eyes turn gray instead of his whole body turning gray.
Oh, they Moon Knight him.
Yeah, but it's done just like that. It's smoothly transitioned. The writing is beautiful. Again, there's a point to this, but they're not beating you over the head with it.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean. Again, character development, character progression. You can't. And I always thought the Hulk was boring up until this series. It's like you can't give me the same thing over and over again. I need something new. And now he's even scarier now because he's back to being a nomad. But now he
Yeah.
will rip you in half and then throw you into space. So, like I absolutely love it. Um, yeah. But what are some things you've learned about other than like we've talked about the creative side, we've talked about um maybe making less but like gaining more personally. What are some other things you've learned this year?
So I think here's the biggest one. It's that you get to decide what the rules are. And what I mean by that is we're all playing games, right? We've all decided on a game that we're gonna play. Some of us play more than a couple, but for a long time, my game was comedian. What I mentioned earlier, I'm a comic. That means this. That means going on the road. That means playing the road. That means going to these clubs. That means having a set that works. All of that, and that is a very valid way of being a comic. But what I've never really defined for myself up until recently is, and we talk about it, we've talked about it on here, what success means, all those things. And I realize if I go back and I listen to every interview I've ever given or anytime I've ever answered a question about what success means, I give very nebulous answers. It's true. It's all metaphor, right? It's all about a sense of satisfaction and a job well done and all that stuff. But those things aren't they're not tangible. They're ideas. They're satisfaction. Okay, well, what the fuck does that mean? How do you get satisfaction? Just like when I was talking to my friend the other day about Netflix special and how many different ways that leaves you for failure. What I'm interested in going into next year and beyond is being able to define what success is and then figuring out how to backwards engineer that into digestible parts and then doing it. So this past year, instead of saying, I want a Netflix special and then sitting around and doing what I would have told you makes that happen, which is, well, do stand up in as many places as you can and hope that someone sees you who has the ability to give you that, right? Well, that leaves, we're back to margin, all these different failure points. That's suddenly dependent on a lot of things. One, me getting to play the right place. Two, the right place being the right time. Three, that person being in the room and then them being capable and then them being interested. There's so many variables that have to go my way that I have no control over, right? And the truth is that, God damn it, it's not what I want is a Netflix special. That's not the truth. What I want is to be able to write the best comedy I can because I've been doing this for 25 years, 23, whatever it is. I want to be able to take all that experience. I want to be able to write it down in a cohesive hour that says how I see the world. Here's all the stuff that I'm thinking. And here's me putting 23 years of punchlines on it. And then let me go make that, because when I'm done with that, I'll have a thing that lets me, that if the world goes, what do you do? I go this, and I can hand it to you, and it's real. And whether it ends up at Netflix or not, suddenly doesn't matter. I have this thing that is me at the top of my game. And I've learned that I can do that. And I don't need anybody to do it. I've got fans who will help me fund it. I've got a team that'll help me build it. I know how to do the hard part, which is the writing and performing and conceptualizing and artistic direct. I can do all that. not with my eyes shut, but with some effort. And if I can do that now, and I can do that again in 2 years, and 10 years from now, I can have 3 or 4 of these that go, hey, I might be a lot of things, but I'm not bad at this. Here's 4 perfect hours of me showing you what I was doing. And each one gets a little better than the last. They're perfect for what they were then, which was me, just like that dumb dude in his oboe or viola or whatever instrument it is. They're me playing on the edge of my ability. And hopefully, if I just keep doing that, I can sleep at night, because that's way better than thinking about having to get up and take some flight to go someplace that's not going to appreciate me for X amount of dollars because I got to make a living somehow. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do this. And that is what I think I've learned this year. I'm going to establish, there's an old Chinese proverb, and I'll fuck it up too, like every other quote this show. But it says there's 3 things you should establish before you start: the rules, the stakes, and the quitting time. And that's what I'm interested in, is just clearly defining, okay, this is what I want to do. And when this is done, that'll be the metric for success, not whether or not it's well received or it ends up in the right place or it does this or that, because all that I got no say so in, right? I can only beg and hope. And I've spent a lot of time doing that, and it hasn't really paid off. So I want to decide that this is what I want to make, and I want to keep making it. And this is the first year that I think I've put that into practice, and it's paid off. So 2024 will be me hoping to prove that correct.
So you said something, and it really does speak to me, because one of the things my wife always tells people when she meets somebody new, she goes, "What does your husband do?" And she goes, "My husband's a writer. He just happens to work security." And it took me a while to really even say that for myself. So, like, when people say like something like, passive aggressive shit, like, "Oh, your little blog," I'm like, nah, 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 nah. Well, blogging is fine. That's not what I do. I'm a writer. Like, let's not diminish what I do. I'm a creator. I create. This is what I do. I remember you were asking for questions on the Slade Ham experiment. And one of the questions I asked was, how do you deal with your friends maybe not sharing your art, like sending it out to the world? And your answer was, why do you want that? And it was a very simple answer, but it said a lot. Looking for external gratification, it hindered a lot of what I was doing all year. Like I said earlier, with when I'm trying to finish my book and not writing my book instead of just writing a book, it hindered what I was doing. Like, now I have to go redo everything that I did, because this isn't my book. It's a book, but it's not my book.
Yeah, but you gotta write all those books to get the book.
Yeah, Sandcastle.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? So, and then it was the learning process of what it means to be a creative, and finding, like, really looking deeper into the quotes that I get from comic books, some of the stuff that I see online, and how one of the best ones I heard was, a creator doesn't always need to be visible. I sent it to my I sent it to my therapist. We share quotes, and he was like, just so, like, when we have conversations during our sessions, he goes, "Hey, why'd you send this to me? What made you think about that?" So on and so forth. And in this one in particular, he had a different um thought process than I did. He took it as, you don't always need to work. Sometimes you need to take a step back and relax, and that's something I hated doing, because you've heard the cliche stuff like, "I'll sleep when I'm dead." While
Yeah.
you're sleeping, someone else is shooting 1,000 jump shots, and it's like, there was a day last month I was fucking exhausted. I didn't really have much to do in terms of, like, my full-time job when I was there. I spent 8 hours writing and reading. I got home. I was supposed to record that Monday. I hit my friends, like, "Yo, I can't." I was like, "I just don't have the mental capacity to do anything creative." And I felt bad about it. My wife was like, "Why do you feel bad?" I'm like, "Because I didn't really do anything all night." She's like, "What'd you do?" I was like, "Well, I read, I wrote a couple of articles." She goes, "Yeah, your brain's a muscle. You have to let your brain rest." But
Yes.
when you're beat over the head with decades of
Yeah,
work.
well,
You
here's
know what I
what.
mean?
Listen to that though. Listen to all of that. This whole hustle culture is so full of shit. It's this concept that horsepower somehow equals money or whatever people believe, that if you just get up and go until your heart bursts, and if you're not if you're not working 100-hour a week, you don't care about those people are insane. the
They are.
the real truth of it, what you were talking about earlier with reading comic books, what we're kind of talking about now, the way you talked about spending that day, the sand into the box. And then there's a period where that sand just has to sit there. And that's the break you have to take, and you're ultimately looking for the right work, this flow, this ebb and flow where you're never burn out. You're ingesting new ideas. You're letting them sit there and marinate for a bit. You take a bit of a break. You let your subconscious work, because it will. And that's the part that makes it all easier for me to deal with. Two things, actually. One, knowing that if I pause, my subconscious is going to do work in a way that I don't have to. And that part is integral to the end result. In fact, if I don't take the break, I'm doing less work than I would be doing if I worked through the break, if that makes any sense.
It does.
And then two, defining the two or maybe three maximum things that are actually important to me right now. Not that I won't think about certain things later or whatever else, but I can't have 9 projects that my brain is always working on. I have to have 2 or maybe 3 that I'm allowed to let my brain play with. And anything else is then an intrusion. And you suddenly become the gatekeeper to your own creation, where you go, okay, not that these things don't matter, but it's not your turn in the room right now. I'm currently working on this book and this new special. And if you're not one of those 2 things, then I've got to deal with you at the door. And that's the sort of thing that protects the important stuff. And then you tell those things to wait outside, right? Because they're not bad ideas. It's a painting you want to make, or it's a song you want to write, or it's a video game you want to play. And you go, you're next. You got a number. I'll get to you. But right now I got to finish these 2 things. And if you do it that way, it suddenly seems less of taking a break is not hustling. No, taking a break is actually, I'm like, you're stopping at the gas station to put gas in the car. I'm getting a coffee while I'm in here and a donut. You know what? We got to put gas in the car. And anybody who told you, man, you can't drive Route 66 if you stop at a gas station, you pussy. They're crazy people. They're crazy people who've never been further than 300 miles, because you can only drive a car so far without stopping at a stupid gas station. So pause and do what you got to do, because you'll ultimately get much, much better work out of yourself.
Absolutely. Like it's funny. I wanted to say that I wish I learned this earlier, but I'm glad I didn't. Because who knows? Because
You can't.
I'm a firm believer of, I believe in alternate realities and the butterfly effect and all of that. I'm pretty sure somewhere there's a Mark who's a millionaire and he's miserable. I'm pretty sure there's an alternate reality out there where he's a millionaire and he's ecstatic.
Yep.
But
which one of those realities all right, this is an interesting thought experiment, right? In which reality, what traits show up in 99% of the Mark realities? Which ones, what's at the core? What's the most consistent? Every one of them has to deal with it.
Stubbornness. Let me tell you. This dude, one of my friends called me the all father of stubborn. Like I could not stop laughing at that. But the stubbornness isn't, so I'm learning to get out of my shell. Trying my best. I'm trying to, like, as I got older, like, certain things scare me a little bit more, like, you know what I mean? But I've realized that, like, when push comes to shove, fight or flight, I fight. So I'm happy about that. But there are certain things I'm just absolutely stubborn about, but those are also the things that make me who I am, because that stubbornness sometimes turns into determination. Like, couple of shifts ago, somebody was like, well, why did you do this? Like, it's not my job. as opposed to like a few months ago, I'd be like, oh, let me do this and that. I'm like, nah, it's not my job. I'm not. It's like I don't need the extra cookie at the end of the day. Now, if somebody was hurt, I'll jump over the desk and do everything I can. But something really simple, and you're gonna give me an attitude for something, it's not my job. Where was the person who's supposed to be
Yeah.
doing that at? Fuck out of here. And that for me, that's the biggest lesson for me. When I went back to work after my wife broke her arm, my therapist and my wife said the same thing. Go in there, do your job, mind your business. There's a sketch on you ever seen White Lotus?
I've seen, yeah, few
So
episodes, not all of them.
SNL did a sketch called Black Lotus. And at the end of it, the police come in and say there's a body washed up on the beach. And the concierge goes, is the ocean a hotel? Because I work at the hotel. And that has been the way I've looked at things. It's like, hey, is this the emergency department? Because I work in the emergency department right now. Is this the lobby? Because I work in the lobby. If it's not
You can
something,
only take on so much shit.
Mhm.
It's you got X amount of bandwidth,
Mhm.
and it doesn't make you insensitive, and it doesn't make you a bad person. But at some point, we all let go of something. We're all not holding on to everybody's trauma in the whole world. And sometimes I let go of a few more people than others, or a few more traumas than others, but I can't carry all that stuff with me. It's it's better for me to focus on what's right in front of me. And if cars are crashing around me and someone needs help, I got you. But if you have a fender bender, y'all need to get out and trade insurance and move on with your lives. I don't need to stop and participate in this.
I forget what, I'm not sure if this was a movie, a TV show, or a comic book, but someone goes, who are you holding all those bricks for?
That's heavy.
And I was in like, and it really made so much sense to me. It was yeah, I'm not like, I'll carry all the bricks for my wife, carry all the bricks for my best friends and stuff like that. But like you said, for example, I donated to your Kickstarter, but I didn't know how to do it via Kickstarter. It says, hey, what's your Venmo? Like that's for me.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like, you know what I mean. I can't send you 100, but I can send you something. And even if it's something as simple as like, let's say you didn't spend it on the Kickstarter and you spent it on uh Jack in the Box for Friargate, and like, you know what I mean. But that's still, you spent it how you felt you needed to spend it to get the fuel that you needed to do. So one more question before we get to the fun stuff. Oh, I had it right here. I'm looking at it right now. What's something you're proud of this year? And I'll give you mine. I'm proud that I have not become the thing that I hate. A lot of times this year, I've seen people who have become trolls, have become like these negative people. And while I see it, I have not become that. And I'm actually generally proud of myself for that,
That's strong.
because I don't like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like supernatural. God ended up becoming the ultimate evil. Like, you know what I mean? You became everything that you hated. And then, as the cliche phrase goes, sympathy for the devil. Like, you know what I mean? He's like, my one sin was loving God too much. And it was such a dope line. And I'm just glad that I see the things that are people going on. And I've always maintained this thought of, I don't know what the next person's going through. I can't stand Charlemagne, but what he said, that he goes, be kind to people because you never know what the next person's going through. And it made a lot of sense to me, because if I bump into somebody because something just happened to me, I would hope that the person wouldn't turn around and clock me because I bumped into them. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like this certain amount of grace you give people depending on the situation. So for me personally, I'm proud that I've not become the thing that I hate.
Good for you. That's heavy. The Yeah, I think this year it's really having done something so deliberate. It's I've done big stuff before, but it's usually something like the Andy project, right? It's not for me. This is the first time that it hasn't been a group effort, that I've sat down and out of nothing gone, I'm gonna write something from zero. I'm gonna figure out how to get the money. I'm gonna figure out how to make it happen. And now to be sitting here on the other side of it and it's all done and I'm in that space between it being finished and me getting to show the world. And that to me is probably the biggest sense of accomplishment. Is it's this it's the I was just in Chile on this trip, and I climbed two mountains while we were there. One to the base of Mount Fitzroy, and then another in Torres del Paine with the Towers of Pain, is what it actually
Oh
sounds like.
damn.
But it's
Hell of a
but
name.
it's really Towers of Blue, but it's very anyway. It's both of them require a significant amount of hiking upward, and you have to do the significant amount of hiking upward after you've done the long part of trekking all of your gear into the campsite. So you put about 30 pounds on your back and then you walk about 5 hours and then you set up camp. And then there's about 2 more hours up to the thing you're actually trying to get to. And it's like going upstairs, basically. Stairs made of rock, but it's windy and it's icy and it's not dangerous, but it requires you to be present and pretty tenacious. And both of those hikes, I remember starting those second legs upward, one of which at 4 o'clock in the morning in the dark kind of rain, and thinking to myself, there's no need to do this. There's no there's no reason to finish this. What do you why? You know? And it's just you versus you. It's
Oh,
just each step. It's just, I mean, you're there with somebody. There's other people climbing the mountain, it's their success has nothing to do with yours. It's just you and you. And that's how I feel right this moment. I feel like I'm sitting there at the base of of, of Mount Fitzroy, having climbed up through the dark and watched the sunset come up, and it just paints this series of mountains in this gold. It's otherworldly, and that's kind of what this feels like. As I'm sitting there, having done all the walking and setting up camp and cajoling people and talking myself into it and sucking down the water and not being able to breathe, finally coming over that ridge and just watching the sun come up. And you only do that if you've decided to do that, because nobody was up there by accident. Nobody tripped and fell out of the helicopter and landed next to us. It was every person watching that sun come up did it the same way. They hiked their ass up there and spent the effort and spent the energy and the money and the time and decided, damn it, I'm going to see that with my face. And that's what I think that's what's the coolest, is just having a couple of things this year that I began on purpose. And now I have the experience of having done them in its entirety. And that's some shit you can't take out of my box, man.
okay. So let me just say for a couple. First, that's dope. Like you're only, you're only, but saying like you're only in competition with yourself is one of the truest things that like you could ever say. Like even if you're competing for a championship or a Pulitzer or whatever it is, sure there are other people in this competition, and there is something to gain from winning. But even then, at the end of the day, you're really in competition with yourself.
That's it. That's it. And when you change the game and you change the rules to reflect that, then it takes away your ability to lose by those old other metrics. That's the magic part, is when you're not measured, you can't measure me up against other people. That has nothing to do with how I'm measuring success. It's just me versus me and whether or not I'm going to take the next step and get to the top. And it's just, man, it's so much more fun this way. Like all that pressure and all that headache and am I doing the right thing? It suddenly doesn't matter anymore. I'm not playing the same game.
What was it? And it's, you ever hear something a million times, and then the million and one time you hear it is the time you get it.
You
Uh,
understand what it means? Yeah.
the I've never read the book, but I understand the title. I was reading X Factor by Peter David, and
Mm-hmm.
character Layla Miller, she was reading Atlas Shrugged, and
Uh-huh.
someone asked her, how do you deal with the weight of the world on your shoulder? And she goes, I shrug. and it was just the simplest,
Yeah.
most profound thing, and it was just it made so much sense. Like it just like Atlas shrugged. He was just like, a Titan
Yeah.
had enough. A Titan
Yeah.
had enough.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Just eh, eh. So this is I'm actually working on an article about this. I came up with the idea a while ago. My editor approved it, but I haven't written it yet. I wrote a version of this over a decade ago. It's who would you hench for? Which of
Ooh.
these characters you'd work for? Now I say hench because some of them villains, but some of these people on this list are heroes.
Okay.
So I got 14 characters on here. Some of them are heroes, some of them are villains.
Let's go through this. Go push against my
Oh yeah.
hardcore individuality
Oh
and
yeah.
my lone wolfism.
This is
Because they gotta be all right. These I'm gonna have to find a collaborative way to make these work. All right, let's
like
get in. Let's see.
because some of them I know you're gonna go fuck no. Some of them you're gonna like really think about. But I'd love to hear your opinion on a lot of these. All right. First off, we're gonna start with one I think would be pretty easy. Joker.
Yeah, look, man, Joker's fun. That's the I because you're never really working with Joker, right? We're both diabolically being as intelligent as we can, just trying to figure out who's going to shoot the other person in the back. And if that's not a little bit fun to you, then you're not as crazy as me and Joker are going to be in this book.
You know what? That was not the answer I was expecting. I love it. Captain America.
See, this over righteous son of a. This is my problem. This is exactly who. This is who tripped the breaker. When you ask the question, this is who comes to mind.
Yeah.
Because if we're gonna collab, it's gonna be in an Avengers-esque situation, and you're gonna want to call the shots. And you're a good tactician, and I get all that. But so am I, buddy. And my tactics are a little different than yours. So there's gonna be a rogue element to me, and I'm probably gonna be the first guy to make Cap say fuck.
I don't know. He's worked with Wolverine in World War II. he's been he's been teammates with him. And oh god, one of my favorite Captain America Wolverine moments came in Original Sin. They have something called Meat Night. And it's him, Black Widow, Nick Fury, and Wolverine, Captain America, Nick Fury, and Wolverine. They just eat steak. That's all they do. And Captain America goes, I can't eat anymore. Wolverine's pissed off. He goes, you better eat this damn ribeye or we're gonna fight. And he goes, if I eat another ribeye, I'm gonna have to get up at 5 in the morning to jog. And then Logan goes, you've woken up every day of your life at 5 o'clock in the morning. And as they're talking, Wolverine and Nick Fury and Black Widow are talking, and Wolverine goes, screw this, I'm eating your steak.
Nice.
And if he could work with Deadpool, I would be really impressed if you could make Steve Rogers say fuck. Are you a fan of Venture Brothers?
Not hugely. No, I don't have enough.
All right, so I won't ask you. Okay, so we'll switch. We'll pass. I was gonna say the Monarch.
Oh, I gotta pass if I can't.
All
Can't.
Right. Batman.
Yeah. It's yes. I think Batman for all the right reasons. Because there's no hocus pocus. I feel like I could exist in Batman's world. There's no portals to wherever. We're not raining fire. We're just us and good old I feel like Batman and I would spend a lot of time in the car drinking coffee. Him going, man, have I shown you what my watch can do? Like that, me and Batman would have a good time together.
So I'm gonna disagree because the next person I think you'd actually work with, Red Hood.
No, maybe no. I get into there's ego and there's just give me Batman. Can you just give me Batman and none of his offspring, sidekicks, cohort, none of them. I keep Damian, I don't like anybody in his circle, but Batman and I
really.
I'm
really shocked by that. I think you'd be a Red Hood fan.
What makes you say that?
Red Hood is
maybe younger me. This is a calmer, different me.
I look at Jason Todd as a perfect combination of Batman and Deadpool.
Fair,
Because
fair.
I wrote an article about this, and
But
there's
I
a
like Batman. And here's the thing: Batman and Deadpool are completely different sides of my personality. That's
okay.
why I don't think it works together, because Deadpool is the out loud merc with the mouth. He slaps you and make sure you saw him slap you. You know what I mean? Like that's what I love about him. But Batman is a dark introvert, and it's he's kind of talking out of
Yeah,
the side of his mouth, and he's
yeah.
hiding in the bat cave, and everything's a little more secluded. And if you try to combine those two, it sort of is me, but it's also like the me I never really am. I'm always one side or the other, I think.
I honestly think that you should have a T-shirt that says "the me that I really am." I think that it's like one of those. It's a plain black shirt. The me that I am. Slade Ham. I also think there's a nickels difference between Batman and Red Hood. I think the only difference is one's parents were killed and he was broke. The other one's parents were killed and he still had $1 billion.
True.
Wilson Fisk.
No, no, I don't think so. It's a he's a knucklehead who's motivated by I don't know. Crime lords never impress me. They're never motivated by anything real. They're always, or you wouldn't be a crime lord, even whether you're masking it as Vanessa or Lost Love or some other. You're still just a crime lord. You're still just a dude at the end of the day with a bunch of garbage trucks.
You know what? So, all right. On the flip side of that, I give you Penguin.
Yeah, you're just uglier Kingpin. It's the same sort of
Uh,
bad motivation.
it's funny because it's actually pretty true. He really
Yes.
he's ugly. He's ugly Kingpin who can't fight.
Yes, that's it with umbrella tricks. It's not, come on.
Superman.
No, no, for the same reason. It's you're too perfect. Yeah, I don't know how to talk to you. I don't, it's you're not, you're invincible. You're not, every time they try to weaken you, you're a pretty boy. You probably throw a football a million miles. Nothing about Superman and I would have ever hung out at any age. I don't think I could probably go to breakfast with him. He might pick up the tab I'm at, but we're not. He's one of my good friends' favorite superheroes, and he's one of my least favorite. And I can't give you any more reason other than just I do like a little flaw. You can't be perfect.
Um, I'll give you a suggestion because I agree with you.
How do you team up with that? What do I contribute to that? What
The
do I bring to the table? Oh, can I hold your glasses, Clark?
Can I put your curl back in place?
Know what I mean? I don't know how to tie a bow tie later when you need me.
So, oh no, here's a good one. Would you work with Injustice Superman?
More, but do I have to? Is it either or can I neither nor?
You can neither. You can either both of them. You can either both of them.
I would now. I would neither both of them, but if it was either or, absolutely Injustice before knuckleheaded Clark Kent Superman.
Uh, I'm not mad at that at all. Like there's a reason why like the only people who aren't like enamored with how great he is are Batman and Wonder Woman, and it's
Yeah,
because I hate to break this to people. If Superman and Wonder Woman got in a fight, Wonder Woman's kicking his ass because
probably
Superman can't fight. He can fight, but he's not like Wonder Woman. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah, and yeah. Oh,
And I remember the one time in Injustice where they put Batman and Superman on semi like power levels, and Batman beat the
yeah,
shit out of him because he can't
yeah.
like yeah.
Rightfully so.
Hydra minus the Nazi stuff.
So I was gonna say that puts a lot of they did a lot of Nazi stuff, man. It's gotta so nah, but
Not Red
no,
Skull
that's
Hydra.
right. That also though it comes with the evil for evil's sake, where I don't see the benefit to me. Like I would work with Hydra if I needed to shift some geopolitical stuff around for something important I needed to do next Friday. Right. Like then I would think about it. But other than that, it's too big. Anything I'm working on is a little like what superhero can help me build a cool ass hot tub? Right. Like that's what I'm interested in. I don't need a global evil organization. I'm just trying to up my life by like 2%, really.
So I'm gonna guess you would say yes to AIM though, because they can build you a better hot tub.
There you go. 100%. Yes. I'm also down with AIM. I'm down with there are a few people can get in here with their organizational skills.
Catwoman.
Yeah. Yes. All previous versions of me would absolutely team up with Catwoman, whatever team up means. But I'm certain Catwoman and I would have some chemistry.
Y'all are just gonna steal shit.
Catwoman and I are gonna have a diabolical night of all sorts of vices. That's what happened. It ends up on a rooftop. There's wine, probably. It's not things you should drink on a rooftop. But I just know how this night goes. I've known a lot of cat women.
I'm not even gonna begin to comment on air. Magneto.
Which Magneto do I get? Do I get the one from
we'll give you anti-hero Magneto, not like terrorist. I'm gonna flip the world upside down.
But so the Jim Lee X-Men Magneto, the one we got at the beginning of that series.
Yes,
I can, which is kind of the Magneto we got in the films. There's purity to that Magneto. I could get down with that, and I think he's also, man, you're the Lord of the Mutants for all intents and purposes, right? You gonna call some cool ass people to the party. This is, anything I do with Magneto is gonna work out.
I'm gonna assume you would say no to Charles Xavier.
I say no to anybody who can read my mind. That's because now we're not working together. Now I'm working for you. This doesn't matter if you can either manipulate me into doing it or you're gonna understand why I'm doing it. I don't care if you do that. I'm not really reading your mind. Show me your hands. Then now I want to see your toes. Something's crossed. I don't believe you. Anybody who can read minds and says, I'm not really reading your mind is a liar, liar, liar.
Emma Frost is I love that Emma Frost is completely honest with. She's like, yeah, I do.
Yes.
And what?
And also no to her.
I will, there's two reasons I would never want to work with Xavier. One, my buddy Javi cracks me up when he says it because he goes, Charles Xavier had child soldiers. And
that part I can live with. It's just the mind reading stuff, really.
And so for me, to your point, what he did to Wolverine was one of the grimiest things I've ever seen. He erased Wolverine's mind, made everyone else, made him think that it was Weapon X, and this entire time, it was Xavier. That is a dick. That is one of the most dick-headedest things I've ever seen in comic books.
Not cool, bro.
Two more. Bane.
No, because I can't whoop his ass, and I promise you, there's gonna come a moment in our partnership where I'm gonna need to whoop his ass. So nah.
I'm just picturing you slapping the shit out of Bane because he asked you to do something. You're like, I'm not doing it. And he's like,
that's what would happen.
Do it or I'll break you, and you're just gonna slap him.
I would just do that banging thing on his chest. It would just sound like a helicopter, and then he would break me in half.
What was it? You're a Deadpool fan. Do you remember it was Deadpool Agent of Weapon X when Sabretooth got his upgrade, and Deadpool goes, "Is that Rocky music I hear?" And he's poking Sabretooth in the chest, and Sabretooth just pushes him like, "Get the fuck out of my face." Yeah. Lastly, and I'm curious to know how you respond to this. Nick Fury.
Oh, so Nick Fury, it's fragmented for me because I have the Nick Fury I grew up with in the comic books, who, is not the same as Samuel Jackson to me.
Yes.
And
completely different people.
Samuel Jackson, I would say yes to working with Samuel Jackson no matter who he is. He could be the cop from Lakeview Terrace, and I would be like, you know what? I'll work with his ass. I like anything Samuel Jackson does. The Nick Fury I remember as a kid, the old man with the white and black hair and the eye patch, and he seemed a little more military. Like he might want to wake up earlier than I do, and get mad if I don't, and he might hit me with some soap and a sock or something. And I just not that Nick Fury.
He's also he's like, I don't know if he's worse than Xavier because he can't control people's minds, or if it makes it even worse that he does it, and he's just probably the most manipulative bastard in Marvel comics.
That's the thing. It's I would like to match wits with a Xavier or a Fury or an Amanda Waller. You know what I mean? I feel like I could dance. But at the end of the day, I feel like I would never really be playing for the same things they are ever. So I just would have to create a scenario where we're both after the same stuff, and then I'd partner up with any of these fools just so I could backstab them.
Well, if you're working with Amanda Waller, I know your one focus is going to be Harley Quinn. So that's your focus. I know what it is. I
can neither confirm nor deny.
that chick is nutty, and she's probably amazing. And, yeah, that's all I got. I was really curious about the Nick Fury one. That's why I went that one last, because I was like, let's see how this one goes. And for the record, and I know it's not your type, but I would bet money, and excuse my language, Amanda Waller probably fucks.
Oh, that's a scary woman, man.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I love it, because she is scary and devious and maniacal, and just, I don't know who's worse, her and Nick Fury. I can't figure out which one of them's worse, because they both have very similar intentions. They're both willing to do things that people care about. It's
that moral code that when there's nobody inside your circle, right? When nobody's safe. That's the ones I don't trust. You gotta have something's gotta be sacred. And so many of them just aren't, they got nothing.
And I gotta say, as far as perfect casting goes, CCH Pounder doing her voice in the animated series, and Viola Davis playing her in Suicide Squad. Flawless. Yeah, no arguments.
Spot on.
So, tell people where they can find you. Where the Whiskey Brothers? Where's the Slade Ham Experiment? Where can they find you on iTunes? The Whiskey Brothers, everything. Tell everyone where they can find all your stuff.
Everything. Just search Slade Ham, SLADEHAM. It's all under. Everything's just /that. My YouTube channel, definitely the place to go. That's likely where the special will be in some capacity soon. I wish I could say more than that, but I've got to wait till some conversations finish. But there will be a special called Signal Noise out very, very soon. It's the best hour of comedy I've ever done. It's got music from Scarface and Candlebox. It's cool. So just keep an eye out. I will not disappoint.
Candlebox did the original Whiskey Brothers team, right?
They did the lead singer along with the band members from the band live. They formed a band called The Gracious Few, and that was the intro music for a very long time. Yeah.
All right, it was The Gracious Few. It actually, it says it in the outro by The Gracious Few. Now that I think about it now. Yeah. So got all this stuff. You can find the Whiskey Brothers everywhere, right?
Yes. Super easy to find. Just search the Whiskey Brothers. It's I've taken away as many barriers to finding me as I can. It's hopefully I'm the only Slade Ham in the world doing anything anywhere close to this. So even if you just get Slade into your search engine, I might pop up.
Yeah, it's either you or the assassin from DC Comics.
That's right.
I don't even know what the fuck that was.
That's from Teen Titans.
The original or the
Scream Slade? It's a meme. It's a meme. It's the cartoon.
I am Slade.
Yeah.
That movie was. I hate that people didn't really enjoy that movie. Teen Titans Go is. I like it. I don't care what anyone says. I enjoy Teen Titans Go. It's fucking goofy. Yeah. It reminds me of the old Ninja Turtles from the 80s. Like, I could just sit back and watch them just be goofy for hours on end. The movie was great.
Yeah, and it's one of the few things in the world that's given me a Slade meme. Come on.
You're gonna make me Photoshop your head and put it on the Slade thing, and just go, "I am Slade."
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am.
Where did you get that
100%.
name? Out of curiosity, I don't think I know that.
My mom gave it to me on my birthday. It's
Oh,
just my name.
that is actually your middle name.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
yeah, I had
wow.
no say so in it. Yep. My whole
Nice.
life. I've never gone by, I mean, when I was a baby, they called me Slade. Like I've never gone by anything else. I
Yeah,
wouldn't respond to anything if you yelled it out.
I'm not gonna say it out loud. I, I would like to keep this friendship or a partnership or whatever the fuck it is. I also don't want to incur the wrath of Slade Ham, so we're not gonna say it out loud.
There you go.
Thank everybody for listening. This has been the Whiskey Brothers. I want to thank Slade Ham for doing this again. This is always fun. This is always informative. It is also one of those really cathartic things where I can just really listen to someone who's seen the world, understood the world, absorbed the world, and have real conversations with. So as always, thank you for coming on and doing the show. Can't wait till the next one come that we do this again. It is always fun putting the docket together for this stuff because I was like, all right, let's get some serious stuff. Gotta add some dorkiness to it. I have to. Absolutely have to.
Oh, of course. Of course. This is it's no fun if there's no fun, man. Thanks for letting me yap.
Always. You have an open invitation. If you're ever just like, hey, do you have 30 minutes? I'm gonna be like, I will find 30 minutes. I will
Yeah,
find
man.
30
It's
minutes.
good for me. It lets me flex my nerd bones. We'll do it again this year before the end, I promise.
Absolutely. Thank you everybody for listening. And as always, be excellent to each other. Peace.
Damn it, Wade!